So, before the After Movie Diner, some breaking news that we thought you might want to know, actually. Well-known jewel thief Lisa Lower burglar and Sarah McLachlan heister, Carlos the Hyena, was caught in Paraguay trying to offload a duffel bag full of fake Tracy Chapmans and a very real and mightily pissed-off Fiona Apple that he pinched by mistake from an all-you-can-juice fruit and organic grains party that was happening on a rooftop in the furthest reaches of Queens. With the authorities hot on his tail, we had heard reports that he had actually disguised himself as Sheryl Crow and was spending a year in Corsica knitting goats together and trying to offload a bunch of Tori Amoses he found lying around behind some dumpsters at a Kennedy Fried Chicken hole-in-the-wall in Poughkeepsie. Meanwhile, a previously fenced Beth Orton that turned out to be a pretty convincing forgery actually sold at auction for a bucket of wing bits, a greasy biscuit, and some mashed potatoes.
Yes, that's right. Back by popular demand. Well, back by a deafening silence that we took to be a reasonable demand that you were all just too polite to make. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner Season 2. That's right, the first 353 episodes were just Season 1. That is just mad! Like all good sequels, in Season 2, you can expect us to ramp up the action, expletives, gratuitous mentions of James Spader's inner thigh, and of course, the gore. That's right, we're going to be rupturing earlobes, nastily prodding dangly viscera, pulling kneecaps off and splashing about in the goopy bits. Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away. Calm yourself, Leanna. In Season 2, your put-upon and rapidly aging host, John Cross, is going to attempt to write, shoot, edit, and score an independent film, while talking with his guests about the arduous process, and probably a movie or two for good measure. Oh, I do hope there's a part in this thing for me. Something good, something I can really sink my teeth into, perhaps with an accent. And a funny hat. I act so much better in hats. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. You can also donate to the show directly at aftermoviediner.com. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please put down your lemon meringues, silence your bowels, and rub 2 nearby dogs together for the one, the only. Thank goodness, because any more of him and we'd have to start a call. John Cross.
No, just put it over there. It's about 2 inches unless you get it wet. Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of the After Movie Diner. And very exciting before we get on with this week's movie conversation. We're very proud and pleased to say that we not only have an email, but also a voicemail. So that is wonderful news, because that means we get to play not one, not one, that would be crazy, but 2 jingles. Let's kick it off with the first one, shall we? Here comes the postman, I wonder what he has for me. There's something in his big brown sack, I wonder what could it be. Well, I hope the bills it lacks and instead brings me some listener feedback, or maybe, just maybe, a big bag of crack. Oh, here comes the postman, I wonder what he has for me. Well, imagine my distinct lack of surprise and yet my bounteous amounts of joy when none other than the Lord Lunn himself, Andy Lunn, Lord of all the Spaders, wrote to us on this, the second episode of 2023's Sleazy Spader Springtime. The only reason I do this series anymore is for Mr. Lunn. He's a wonderful, cheeky chappy who, since we started the Sleazy Spader Springtime series, has been regaling us with his stories of both the times that he watched the Spader films himself, as well as other things that are just happening in his life. And this email is no exception. I'm such a fan of this man and his emails that I would continue to watch Spader films long into my twilight if it meant that he would keep writing. He writes, "Dear John, it was a chilly Saturday morning here in Blighty yesterday, but the time had come to paint my shed in order that it could look glamorous through the summer months. Not an exciting chore by any stretch of the imagination, so I needed some kind of content to jimmy me along." Well, let me just stop you there, Andy. I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older, grayer than Steve Martin's nutsack, or if it's just because I myself am now the proud owner of 3 sheds. But painting a shed, even on a chilly Saturday morning, I don't know, that sounds glorious to me. Anyway, he continues, "I was therefore over the moon when, upon opening the iPod, I found that a Sleazy Spader Springtime episode had dropped just in time for the occasion, a real delight that my earholes had been crying out for. I'm lost for words to discover that my enjoyment of your discussions on the movies of this curious specimen of a human being is a major reason as to why you have embarked upon this again. I cannot thank you enough. Crash is a favourite of mine, and the draw here, other than something of a Rosanna Arquette obsession that started in the early 1990s, and who can blame him, is of course the amazing Spader-Man. As you covered on the show, he is possibly the only person who could make the not particularly sleazy elements of the character even more filthy than the obvious sex scenes. He has a mind which reveals itself through particular expressions and facial tics, and it's always a joy to watch. You were right in what you were saying, though. Discussing Crash and reflecting upon it afterwards actually becomes more interesting than the movie itself. I have the film on 4K and it looks fantastic, as does the aforementioned Rosanna. Oddly, Letterboxd tells me that it's pretty much a year since my last viewing, and so I popped it on last night and it does not disappoint. I actually found it quite a bit more amusing than I had in the past. I'm not sure what that says about me. Anyhow, once again, thank you for such an entertaining episode. I haven't even mentioned all the pre-crash talk, which was also a wonderful listen. All the best to you, Kim, and I leave you with this little photo of me listening to the show whilst painting my shed. Please note, I can assure you that the white residue on my jeans is gloss paint from a previous spot of DIY and nothing untoward. Lun. Well, this is why I do this. This is why I have started back up the podcast. It is for people like the Lunster. It is for the Andy Lunns of the world who not only, obviously love the show and listen especially to the Sleazy Spader Springtime episodes, but do so while painting a shed and then send me a photograph of it. That to me is sheer unbridled joy, and with everything going on in the world, flecks of paint or, residue from a horny evening with a picture of Rosanna Arquette notwithstanding, a photograph of Lun in his shed is just enough to put a smile on anybody's face. But thank you ever so much, Andy. That was a real pleasure. And I do hope we'll get at least one more email from you before the season is out. Voicemail, a voicemail. Everybody leave us a voicemail. A voicemail, a voicemail. Won't everybody leave? Get out! Voicemail, voicemail. Please everybody leave us a voicemail. I said voicemail, a voicemail. Now everybody leave. Get out! Jeff, you loiterer.
Hello. Is this the after dinner dispensary? Hi. My name is Marge. I'm calling because I want to get some gummies for my wife and me. We want to get high, but we don't want to get too crazy. We're 70 years old. We don't need to get crazy with it and everything. But we just heard about these gummies. It sounds like a good thing. I mean, you kids don't know how lucky you have it. When I was your age, I had to get my grass from a squat Filipino bodybuilder named Gunther. One time he gave me stuff laced with angel dust. I was so high, I woke up in Farmer Brown's chicken coop. He called the cops on me. And I don't blame him, I mean, his chickens, they just want to relax and lay their eggs, and they don't need some guy bothering them because he's high or whatever. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm taking up too much of your time. I'll call you back during your hours of business. All right. Good day to you, sir.
Hello. Welcome back to the After Movie Diner. There is something I have to do every time now. I have to take my phone off the desk so it doesn't vibrate. I have to take my Apple Watch off because she likes to chime in. Like every time I say anything, there we go. Every time I say anything, she crops up and is like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by flaccid penis, or whatever.
Yes, you do, Sarah.
yes, you do, Marjorie. So, yeah, I have to throw her across the room because she's a waste of time. But I'm all ready. I have what I believe to be James Spader's snack of choice, which is Mr. Kipling's jam tarts. I hear that Spader loves a jammy tart. If you know what I mean.
And pepperoni as well. Spicy.
He loves a spicy pepperoni tucked between two jammy tarts. So wonderful to welcome back onto the show. It's Dr. Paul Crowson, my old cohort in the Dr. Action Kick-Ass Kid Show, which, by the way, randomly got 400 downloads the other day. So people are still listening to Dr. Action.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, just out of nowhere. But yeah, no, I was checking because, I've done these. We're now on the second season of the After Movie Diner. We did 353 episodes.
Yeah, it was a long season, that first one, wasn't it?
It was. But the first season's always the hardest. The first season is when they're establishing the characters, figuring out the routine. The second season is when it hits its stride, I think. That's what I like to say.
One character's got to die.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's what I'm doing back.
No, I mean, if anything, so far in the second season, it's Jim Wallace who has been conspicuous by his absence. So it's like I've killed off my co-host.
Well, I can't see him anywhere in the background.
No. So the thing is Jim Wallace will appear on the second season of the After Movie Diner, but it will only be once I get my butt to New York and we do something in person. He likes the in-person shows. He is not a fan of the Skype shows. So, but it is what it is. I live out in the countryside now. It is what it is. Skype is at least, it's better to have shows than wait for the, once every 4 months that I go in the city and speak to Jim shows. That wouldn't be much of a second season. I'm trying to do these once a week, Paul. That's what I'm trying to do. So, and the theme of the second series, along with obviously film reviews, Sleazy Spader Springtime and all the good things. Oh, it's Sleazy Spader Springtime. Welcome to the show. Oh, it's a Sleazy Spader Springtime. I want you all to know that if you please, there's James Spader Sleaze and it's got nowhere else to go. So loosen all your blouses, give your nose a damn good blow and resist the urge to flee. After all, it's 2023. Sleazy Spader Springtime Show. Oh yeah, it is 2023. Sleazy Spader Springtime Show. Is John Cross is making a movie. That's right, Doc. I am making a movie. I am writing it as we speak. I'm halfway through the second act. I'm about 40 pages in. Last episode, I was 30 pages in. And so there's not much of an update this week to me making it. I'm still writing it. I'm still excited about it. I still know who the killer is because it's a detective story.
Oh, nice.
But what? I like a good detective, me. But I think that that we'll be able to talk through today's episode, today's film, The Music of Chance, and talk a little bit about structure because it's a film that doesn't really have any, right?
Music of Chance is just like it's like a dream. There's no. It's very 90s.
Yeah, it's very 90s, very stream of consciousness. And so when I put it to you, I said, like, hey, I'm doing Sleazy Spader Springtime. Do you want to come back? And I gave you some options. I could have sworn you were going to jump all over Stargate because of the Spader-Russell action sci-fi. But no, you were like, how about we do the music of chance? And the funny thing about it is that because this will be the last Sleazy Spader. You know, we're doing Crash. I'm doing Stargate with John Wallace next, and I'll probably round out the season with Secretary. So the idea was to do, like, the big ones. Let's go out. Yeah. It's the 6th Sleazy Spader Springtime. There's literally only a handful of Spader films that we haven't covered, and they're not particularly great ones. So it was like, I put the list out there, and you came back with Music of Chance. So you tell me, this is the outlier. It's not one of Spader's like big well-known ones. It's a rare 90s. I hasten to call it a gem, but it's a gem in its own way. It's certainly a Spader gem, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. It is a gem.
It's a gem for Spader. That's what I feel like.
It's definitely a gem for Spader. Definitely, because he gets to act. He seems like he's really into the performance. Not to say that James Spader can't act. He can act. But, you know, when you see him playing a sleazy shitbag, you sort of go, that don't seem like it's a stretch.
It's not a stretch for old Spades. and don't get me wrong, there is still plenty of sleaze to be had in this performance. But and we'll get into it. But I feel like
there has to be sleaze there for Spader to be in it. Yeah. So I just don't think he turns up.
He wouldn't show up. No, I think the sleaze in this one, like, for example, we'll get into the plot of it in a minute, but like the prostitute scene, which has no bearing on the rest of the film.
They could cut that out.
Yes. Yeah. I can only assume that Spader was like, I'm not doing this film unless I get to at least sleep with one person. He was like, you can almost picture, I've had this idea for a scene with a prostitute.
Yeah.
And the director and the writer and everyone just went,
Mandy Patinkin went, I told you this would happen, guys.
Yeah. If you're going to hire Spader.
he can't go 3 months without smelling vagina juice.
And it's funny because otherwise it would be an all-male film. It would be a male-driven, almost. The plot doesn't bear any similarity, but almost like a very Reservoir Dogsy thing. Like all men, lots of talking, abstract plot, completely different to Reservoir Dogs, but it has that similarity, and it has Chris Penn in it for, again, a very random cameo as Emmett Walsh's son.
It's got a really, really strong cast, especially for the 90s. The only guy I don't know is one of the Millionaire guys, Joel Grey.
Joel Grey. So he's a Broadway actor who is primarily known for big musicals and things on Broadway back in the 70s. However, he occasionally has had... He has a very controversial role. He has a very Mickey Rooney-style role in the Remo Williams movie, the Fred Ward action movie, in which he plays an Asian gentleman.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see why they went there.
Where it's not quite as offensive a stereotype as Mickey Rooney's, but it's still very offensive. It's still yellow face.
When you consider that James Hong was all around going, what the fuck?
Yes, exactly. Right. No, exactly. No, but that's a good point. Like when you consider the fact that if you need an Asian stereotype in an action movie in the 80s or 90s, you've got, any number of actors you could have gone to. The fact that they made up Joel Grey to look like an Asian gentleman is a bit ridiculous. But yes, so that's his most controversial role. But he was in an episode of Buffy. He's done sort of some stuff.
Right. So he's like, because I'm assuming he was well known anyway.
Yes, he's a well known New York kind of theatrical set kind of actor. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only other guy that I've never seen before is the guy in the car at the end, but that is the guy who wrote the novel.
It is, yes.
Yeah, Paul Auster, is it? Paul Auster?
Paul Auster? I barely touched her.
Paul Auster, yeah. And so Joel Grey, yes, probably known best for Cabaret in the 70s. He was Cabaret. But he's done a turn. I mean, he's been in 76 filmed things between TV and film. So
we're talking Bobby Davro level of fame then.
Yes, we're talking. We're definitely talking Bobby Davro kind of national treasure kind of level of fame.
Right. Okay. I'm glad I'm there.
Yes, but no, he's known. The rest of the cast is rounded out by, well, you've got Spader and Mandy Patinkin as the main duo, a very kind of waiting for Godot kind of duo, because it's sort of this, it's meant to be this sort of back and forth between the two lead players. In fact, when I was reviewing it, the thing that struck me is it's sort of a bit like the dynamic in Withnell and I, sort of.
I was thinking that earlier when I was thinking about it. It was kind of like it's Withnell and I if they just met and went on a road trip straight away.
Yes.
There's some very different characters.
If Withnell and I, if Withnell was a excessively sleazy, mustachioed card shark,
yeah,
and with a New York accent, James Spader's New York accent, to be fair, sounds like a teenager in a school production of Goodfellas trying to do like a New York hood accent. You know what I mean? Like it's all over the shop, and ever so often his real accent creeps in.
There's accents in New York, and what James Spader's doing is
it's all of it.
It's what I'd do if I went over and went, what does New York sound like? I'd be like, how you doing there, New York?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's what we were doing when we were walking around like Little Italy. Being like, when you and I were walking around, being like, it's a fugazi. So yeah, he's kind of doing like that New York accent, like kind of a little bit De Niro, a little bit Walken. It's kind of all over the place. Like he's kind of doing that, and it's hilarious because it sounds exactly like a teenager being asked to be like a heavy in a gangster play in a high school. That's what he's trying to do, and it's absolutely hilarious because there's no need for it. Like there's no him being. Like the fact also, it's ridiculous. Like him being a card shark from New York. Like, yes, of course people gambled in New York and whatever, but it's not the gambling town. Like the gambling town is Atlantic City, New Jersey. Like that's really where he would be primarily focused on. And the film is shot in North Carolina. There are some scenes shot in New York, but the film is shot in North Carolina. But I presume is meant to be set like it's either set in upstate New York or it's set in Connecticut. Like that's the only place that a house like that with that kind of land would exist. Would really be in Connecticut or New York. But it's actually it's shot down in North Carolina. Then we have M. Emmett Walsh, who's. The whole film has like a southern feel because you've got him and Charles Durning, both of whom are people will know from Coen Brothers films, actually. And their southern portrayal of a southern gentleman, portly southern gentleman, let's just say. And they don't change much in this movie either. It's not like either of them attempt a Connecticut accent.
Emmett Walsh has never been like, I'm a big fan of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I've done that in the park. He's like, no, you've not.
No. Emmett Walsh is like, I'm not changing my accent, my hangdog expression, my general air of confusion. Like, I'm just going to be Emmett Walsh. But you love him for being Emmett Walsh.
And he's always been Emmett Walsh.
Yeah.
There's never been anybody else. He's like cryogenically frozen. Every time he's been in a film, it's like putting him back in the freezer.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to outdo him.
No, and he was in, what was he in recently? He both hasn't aged and has aged. Like, he aged when he was 30 and then hasn't aged since. He's like the reverse of Paul Rudd. Like, Paul Rudd hasn't aged yet, but you feel like Paul Rudd will get to, like, 65, and then suddenly, like, boom, age, right?
Yeah.
M. Emmett Walsh, I think, was 30 and, like, aged and then stayed.
Yeah, I think he was probably bitten by Wilfred Brimley.
Yes, that's probably what happened. Yeah, Knives Out was probably then the last time I saw him. He played Mr. Prufrock in Knives Out. And again, doesn't look any different than he looks in this movie.
No, he's never changed.
Still acting today as well. And what's incredible about M. Emmett Walsh is he's actually only 62. That's what's incredible about it. He's not actually. He's was born in 1935, so he's in his 80s. He's coming up to he'll be 90 in 2 years.
Yeah, Jesus. And you'd have thought he'd paid off his fucking mortgage by now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would have thought. But what you don't understand is he has a debilitating crack habit.
No wonder he looks so fucking old.
Yeah. But no, he's in it. He's fantastic. And so
there's really not a bad performance in the whole film.
No, and if anyone is out of place, it's funny. If anything doesn't quite work for me, it's Patinkin and Spader together. What I kind of said in my review was this, is like in With Nell and I, to use that as kind of a common example.
I mean, realistic. With Music of Chance was what, 92, 93?
Yes, 93.
So realistically, it's only like what, 7, 8 years after With Nell. So it probably was a bit of an inspiration for it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's so there's lots of inspirations to go into this, and I think because I was racking my brains because the director of this movie almost solely directed documentaries until he directed this movie, and certainly wasn't like a hot young thing in Hollywood or anything. It wasn't like I sort of thought to myself, I was like, well, in the early 90s when the indie boom was exploding, Steven Soderbergh and Richard Linklater and Tarantino and Kevin Smith, was it just that any new director that came along could get a cast together because that cast was thinking, well, shit, this guy could be the next Robert Rodriguez, or this guy could be the next Tarantino. And the script certainly has that, certainly in Spader's dialogue, has that quick patter kind of colloquial writing that could be compared to Tarantino. Yeah,
it does feel like James Spader looks like he's taking that shot to be in like sort of this is how I'd probably get into a Tarantino film.
Right.
Sadly ended up only making 2 Days in the Valley.
Right, which is a Pulp Fiction ripoff, right.
Yeah. But he does look like he belongs in a Tarantino movie.
Well, he ended up in a Rodriguez movie. Isn't he in one of the Spy Kids movies or not Spy Kids? No, the one he made after Spy Kids. It's another kids movie, but Spader plays a villain in one of Rodriguez's like weird movies he made for his kid thing.
Might be Shorts, is it, or something like that?
Yeah, Shorts or something like that. Yeah, Shorts. He plays Mr. Black in Shorts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so similarly, so in With Nell and I, like the genius of that casting is that while Richard E. Grant certainly has the showier part, it doesn't work if you don't have the right guy in Paul McGann in I. And Marwood, the I character, is written in such a way that while no, he's not as verbal as With Nell, he has his own character, he has his own interests, he has his own neuroses and anxieties. In this one, similar dynamic, one's a talker, one's not kind of thing. But I just didn't feel like Patinkin really had a character he could hang on, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I think that's probably because more that's his character is he's searching for himself, so he's got no character. Right. I think it's all about him finding himself while he's on the road, and this is just sort of like his journey through life. It's the things that I think it's that his wife's left him or something.
Yeah,
and his daughter's living with his sister at the time or something.
Yeah, and his estranged father, who he hasn't seen since he was a child, left him $200,000.
So he's just sort of gone out to sort of find himself.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, it feels very much like a 70s film made in the 90s.
Yes.
This sort of, going off to find yourself, and it feels like, whatever he does, he just sort of gets trapped in the traps you just get in life anyway.
Yeah. And there are plenty of 70s movies where, nothing much happens, but the reason why you're enjoying watching it is the performance of the two leads.
Yeah.
And obviously I like Mandy Patinkin, and he's certainly a soulful enough actor to be able to portray someone who, like you say, is kind of searching for themselves, is a bit lost or whatever.
Yeah.
I think where it gets difficult is that, and with the best will in the world, Mandy Patinkin is at his best when he can be sort of overly dramatic, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's
it's very subdued from him in this one.
Right. And he is, in a very theatrical way, not in a bad way, but in a theatrical way. And I know what I mean by that. He's an overactor in the sense that he has more of a theater way of doing things than a film way of doing things. And therefore, when he does like crying or anguish or angst or whatever in his other film roles or in his other TV roles, there's a lot of like chest thumping and, he's very dramatic and arm movements and whatever. And in this, he can't really do that because there isn't really a emotional
It doesn't feel like he's got an emotional bone in him in the whole film, really.
Right. I mean, except the frustration of...
Yeah, the only time you see him really sort of get emotional is when James Spader's in the field.
Right.
And he had the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
That's the only time you sort of think, oh, he actually cares about something. He talks about his daughter and you sort of go, yeah. And the only other thing he talks about is his car.
Right.
That he sort of cares about. And he's sort of like, oh, you're a proper bloke.
Well, the car represents his freedom, his search, his travel, his...
Yeah.
But then again, it's... So anyway, that was my only thing, was the double act didn't work as well as it could have done because I felt like Patinkin was sort of a little constrained because of the way it was written.
Yeah.
And Spader is so, like, over the top and, limbs flailing and vowel sounds going all over the place and funny costumes and, he's so Muppet-like in this. He is. He's like a Muppet. Like his limbs are all spindly and his hair's all crazy. And
it's a very different performance from James Spader.
It really is. And it's one of the reasons why I would say, like, if that central performance wasn't in this film, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But with that central performance, I feel like... But I also feel like Patinkin then has decided, well, I can't meet Spader halfway because I either go full all over the top like Spader is, and then that's going to break the dynamic.
Yeah.
I can't go halfway because I'm Mandy Patinkin. I don't know how to go halfway. So I'm just going to subdue everything, and I think that's where it fails a little for me. But let's go through the plot so that people kind of such as it is. If you want to give it a rundown, and then we can dive back into kind of talking about what we liked and stuff.
Okay, so
also I want to eat my jam tart.
Okay. So is it James Nash or is it John Nash? I can't remember his name. Nash.
I think it's Jim Nash. I think
Jim Nash is like we say, he's estranged from his wife. He's been given a $200,000 check from his dad in the will. So he's gone off to find himself, and just driving down the freeway in his red BMW, he happens upon a beaten up James Spader, as you do.
In the most ridiculous light blue 70s suit covered in blood. Yeah.
So he picks him up, and it's a bit like Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. You've just sort of got that big open scenery. They talk to each other. James Spader tells Mandy Patinkin that he's a gambler. What trouble has he had?
So I forget all the ins and outs because it sounds like just a story that he's laying on. Yeah. essentially that he was gambling with a group of people, and that like a fight broke out for the money, and he would have all this money if it wasn't for the fact that he had to duck out from being beaten more than he was, kind of thing, because he was already bloody and stuff, but he was like, I had to get out of there because shit was going down or whatever. But it was to do with gambling. He was up, he made lots of money, but then didn't have any with him because he was screwed over by the guy he was gambling with, and the fight broke out, and the usual. It just sounded like a tall tale, so I was like, whatever, Spades, let's move on. Kind of thing. I didn't remember every beat of it, but
right. So James Spader tells Mandy Patinkin that he was on his way to this card game where there's these two rich dudes, Charles Durning and Joel Grey. It's a $10,000 buy-in, and he's on such a good roll that he definitely knows that he can take him for all he's worth, but he's got no money.
Yeah.
So he proves to Mandy Patinkin that he can play poker. So Mandy Patinkin offers to stake him for the game. They go there. The two dudes are weird as shit.
Yeah.
You get shown around the house, and they won the lottery or something.
Yeah, they won the lottery, and every investment they've made since has netted them even more money. So they're sort of wealthy beyond that they know what to do with it. And that's
rich white dudes.
Yeah, and that Spader has played them previously in a game and rinsed them for some of their money. And that comes to play because they say, well, we've taken lessons now and it's not going to be so easy. Yeah. But then they're showing around the house, and Joel Grey has this huge model
city of the world,
he calls it, but it's really just a city of, it's just really the property they own.
It's how he sees a perfect world, and he's sort of like the god looking down over everything. So they have the game
again, a scene that doesn't really mean or play into anything, but
it's just kind of setting up that they will be overseeing him from
right, but they're really only in the one scene, and then
they don't show up again, do they?
But but their presence is meant to be felt the rest of the film.
Yeah, you're meant to think that they're always watching somehow.
Yeah,
you don't know how, but they're always watching,
or through M. Emmett Walsh.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah,
and so they lose out. They lose big time, and Mandy Patinkin says to them that they can do the odd job because they've shipped over a castle from Europe.
So they lose the initial $10,000 buy-in.
Yeah,
they then lose another $10,000 and Mandy Patinkin's car. Spader blames Mandy Patinkin because Mandy Patinkin goes walking through the house during the middle of the poker game and steals the little figures of Flower and Stone, Joe Grey and Charles Durning's character, from the City of the World thing. He thinks that's bad juju, and that's what's caused them to lose. But they're in a big hole. They have no way to pay it out, and the old gentlemen propose, well, we have this 15th century Spanish stone that comes from a castle that they purchased somewhere. Or is it Ireland? Is it Ireland or Spain?
Ireland.
It's Ireland. Is it Ireland?
Yeah.
And to be honest, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. But no, they purchased something. They had it shipped over. It's all just stone. They want to build a wall for no reason in the middle of a meadow that they own on this property. And they say, if we pay you, the math is, if they pay you $10 an hour and you work 10 hours a day between the two of you, that would be $200 a day, which would take 50 days to pay off what you owe us, right?
Yeah.
So Spader's like, this is madness. I'm not fucking doing this. Patinkin's like, what else are you going to do? Like, you go, like, we've got no car. Like, you've got no money. Like, there's no way you can go. Like, why don't we just do this? Because it's a month and a half, and and then we're good to go, right? So Spader's all ready to leave, and then looks at Patinkin, who said he's going to do it anyway. Like, Patinkin's like, I'll do it then. You go, and I'll just work, because what else have I got going? And Spader goes, you'd be half dead if it wasn't for me. Fuck it, I got to help you out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they agree to do it. They're given a little trailer house, up on bricks in the corner of this field where they can live. They're told that they will be given all the provisions that they want as part of this agreement, and that they are told that they will be paid this amount, and so on and so forth. And what happens is they kind of, and we can get into specifics later, but they get to the end of the 50 days and they're like, well, okay, we've paid off the debt, but we don't have any money.
Yeah, to get away from it.
So, like, why don't we stay a bit longer and earn more money? And then two things happen back to back. M. Emmett Walsh, who's been their kind of guide, their guard this whole time, their kind of minder. The go-between, the minder the whole time. He shows up the day after they celebrate that they've come to the end of their 50 days and says, well, actually, you still owe $3,600 because of all the food you ate. And he's like, no, that was included. We shook on it. We shook on it. And he's like, right, but the original contract you signed didn't make any mention of food. So, they want another $3,600.
It's like one of those things that life always fucking throws at you.
Right, just as you think you're of the... Yeah.
But the whole film is basically about hitting a road, but the road is one that you've made yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what it's basically about. And every time they think they're ahead, Emmett Walsh will come along and say, no, because we didn't think about the cigarettes you were going to have. And
right.
It seems like they're good, because at one point you think to yourselves, they're going to stay and they're going to really create a wall and do well for themselves. And then 5 minutes later, it's James Spader's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So the moment Spader wakes up from his prostitute-induced coma, he says, fuck this, I ain't doing this. I'm escaping. They go to, we're to believe that the house has a big fence around it, and they dig a hole under the fence, and Spader escapes, only for Patinkin to wake up the next morning and find him bloodied and beaten in the field. Where M. Emmett Walsh and his son, played randomly by Chris Penn, show up and take Spader to hospital, will not let Patinkin go with them. The assumption is...
ring the hospital either.
Yeah, it won't let him ring the hospital either, so the assumption is that Spader is dead. Patinkin finishes the wall. M. Emmett Walsh and his son, Chris Penn, go out for drinks. Chris Penn offers Mandy Patinkin to bet on a game of pool. Patinkin wins about $50 in this game of pool. And as Chris Penn goes to give it to him, he says, keep the $50, but let me drive my car home. I really miss driving my car. And on the way home, he speeds up, crashes, presumably either killing or injuring or putting into a coma M. Emmett Walsh and his son. He is then left bloodied and beaten, straggles out onto the road, only to be then picked up by yet another stranger, and the whole thing starts again, one assumes, and that stranger is played by the author of the book, Paul Auster, who I don't know, he's not like a name, like a Stephen King or whatever, like some kind of famous author or even a James Patterson or something, but apparently looking into him, he was something, certainly within the trendy New York set, he was something of a cherished fan favorite author. Well, and a bit of a star fucker as well, I think. And
The book, The Music of Chance, his original book, was released by Faber and Faber, so you know he was pretty Mr. Fancy Pants.
Yeah, he was fancy schmantz, and he was he had friends. I think in one of the articles I read about him, it was like, you know, he knew everybody from so and so to Lou Reed or whatever. Like he just like hung out in New York. He was one of those New York authors. Had a lot of, and that listen, the cast may have come on board because of him. Like if anyone is famous outside of the cast in this, it's the author. I just think he was probably a very niche New York kind of hipster author that we wouldn't have heard of in the UK back then, but was well known over here, and that may have also attracted the cast. And he said, so interestingly, he said that the idea of the book came from the idea of fairy tales, where you were told something like, you know, a young girl lives at the edge of the wood with her aging grandmother, right? Fairy tales start something like that. They don't explain what the girl looks like. They don't explain what the house looks like. They don't explain what the grandmother looks like or what they're doing on the edge of the wood. But just that sentence alone, when you're a kid or even as an adult, your imagination goes, I know what that house looks like. I know what the young girl looks like. I know what the grandmother looks like. You know, you fill in all the blanks, right? So he wanted to write a book and indeed a help on the screenplay where your brain kind of filled in the blanks.
Right, yeah.
That's harder to do with a movie because you're obviously watching it. But I think this is where I think I get also a little frustrated with it, is that if there was any opportunity for us to fill in the blanks in that regard, it would be with either Spader's past or Patinkin's past. And Spader doesn't really talk about his past outside of the card games he's won. But Patinkin kind of hints at his past a lot, right? Fireman in Boston and taking this road trip and estranged father and blah, 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 blah. And sure, okay, you can probably like put a face to some of those stories or put an image to some of those stories, but a little more of that, like I say, bit more of back and forth between the two of them would have maybe lent that air more to the screenplay. The other inspiration is, as I said before, those kind of two-hander plays like Waiting for Godot and other things like that, where it's about the journey, not the destination, or it's about the story, not the conclusion, right? So that's why I put my phone down there, because I'm always getting scam calls. So that's the general outline. It's a very stream of consciousness, secular, like you say. You know, a decision in life can set, especially where money's concerned, can set you down a path that you never quite recover from and pushes you into other experiences. Like you say, there was something of that. You know, are the Charles Durning and Joel Grey characters, are they representations of the fat cat businessman? Are they representation of like God entities or you know, all powerful whatever? Is it the fact that currently the 1% does control what the 98% are doing, because we all have to earn money and pay for our homes and whatever? So I mean, you know, there's metaphors and stuff you can find in there, but I don't
probably more relevant today than any time, probably.
Yeah, but I have to say, like, it doesn't make the movie any more compelling to think of it like that. I prefer to think of it as a theatrical style two-hander made at a time when indie movies were sort of replicating that kind of 70s feel, but with a more pop culture bent, like Reservoir Dogs and Robert Rodriguez and even Richard Linklater. They're definitely, they're like 70s filmmakers in the sense that they, like Scorsese and Spielberg before them, were like students of cinema first and foremost, and therefore the movies they made represented cinematic language. But the 90s versions are more pop culture than the 70s. The 70s versions are more philosophical, psychological, emotional. The 90s versions are all that as well, but they're sort of filtered through this slightly larger than life kind of pop culture characters.
Yeah, because there's no two ways about it. In the 90s, they had it better than they had in the 70s, so there's sort of less of that. Right,
but it's also like the 60s and 70s would be the come down after the capitalist, playful 50s and early 60s. I always make this comparison between the 80s and the 50s because the 50s is the first time that music is made for teenagers. It's the first time films are made for teenagers. It's the first time that society gets around the idea of a youthful society, a wealthy society, a capitalist society, and a boom of some sort. America is practically the only country that fought in World War II that has a boom after World War II rather than a full financial collapse. So
America was sort of like boogieing, and they looked at the rest of the world and went, "What are you dancing?"
Yeah. So when we say that America's war profiteers, I mean potentially, and then there's the whole brain drain where like America was secretly siphoning off very influential and intelligent Germans and Italians and Russians and so on to go work in America on the space race, and there was all that kind of stuff as well. So like America just went, I know we just defeated fascism, but how about we cherry pick everything we want and then fuck off back to America?
They've got to work somewhere,
right? Oh, the Nazis stole a bunch of art and gold, you say? Oh, I wonder what... Oh, that went missing? Oh, it went missing, you say? No. Anyway. But no, and similarly, the 90s, while you're quite right, they're not a downturn to the extent that the 70s was. They do follow the 80s, which again is sort of the next decade that is teen-focused, blockbuster focused. I always think if you say Coca-Cola, what are the two decades you think of? You think of the 50s and the 80s. Like, it's that Americana Coca-Cola thing, right? It's just it pervades those two decades. And so the early 90s, it's like, all right, guys, we gave you all the toys and everything, but how about we start telling some more inward stories again? And this is part of that. I think if anything lets this down, I just don't find Philip Haas an interesting director. I just think in another director's hands, this would have looked and felt a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And I also think once it starts off as a two-hander, but it sort of finishes off where you think to yourself that James Spader was just sort of like a glorified co-star.
Right.
He doesn't actually offer that much to it in terms of his story or what he's been about. I mean, there's certain bits, but it's more about Mandy Patinkin, where really you want to see him be playing off a bit more against each other.
Right, and it's where someone more compelling. It's why I make the With Nan and I comparison, because With Nan and I ends up being a movie about Marwood, not about the I character. For people who don't know that I is called Marwood in the script.
Based on Bruce Robinson.
It turns out to be his story. The movie begins with him. It ends with Withnell, but it ends with him going off on the train to actually have a life and a career.
He's the one who's going to go off and better himself.
Right.
And Withnell is left behind the bars.
Exactly. Behind emotional bars. Behind self-made bars of alcohol and drugs. But so whereas this lacks that through line for Patinkin, because, what's he going to do? He's just going to drift off, and I don't think he's ever going to get back to... I mean, I know at the end he says, I'm heading for Minnesota, which is where his sister is. But you get the idea he's never going to make it there, nor does he really want to. Otherwise, why wouldn't he have been there?
He still feels as lost at the end of the film as he was at the start. And maybe you could say, well, that's life, isn't it?
That's life, isn't it? Oh, that's life.
There you go. What did you expect?
Well, we'll just end it here then.
Yeah, 3 stars.
3 stars. But yeah.
Yeah, but great performances. There's just, like you say, there's just that bit that's sort of, it's you've watched it and you've sort of gone, it's really good, performances are great, it definitely means something, but it's kind of like just, I don't know. I don't know.
It's also a really weird movie in the sense that, it's not a big budget film, obviously.
No.
But it has, so 2 things. First of all, it goes to New York, films in the real New York. There's a whole sequence in New York, which doesn't need to be set there. Everything that happens in New York could happen in the car or could happen in a roadside motel or, you could just be like, we're driving to New York, but it's going to take us a few days. Let's go to a motel. Like, you don't need to go to New York, but the movie goes to New York and has a big scene in New York. Then the movie has, while you can probably fake the, stately home and stuff, and in fact, it never shows you the whole home. You only see like the gate, and then you see a big room, and you see whatever. Like, and the big room is fairly empty. It's just a card table on a big rug. Like, you could really have filmed that anywhere. It then has 2 things which must have cost the production money. One is the City of the World model, which even if you took an existing model, like, because people make those models, right? People, weirdos, no, I'm joking. Like train enthusiasts who like to build huge models of the town that their train can ride through. And then Mummy will watch me. No, I'm just... Mummy will watch me while I touch it. No, sorry. Watch me play with my model, Mummy. And with the other hand, no. Shall I put myself in the model, Mummy?
Toot toot, call me Percy.
The train's coming, Mummy, and I'm coming too. In the tunnel, Mummy. Anyway, sorry, I'm going to stop. Even if you took one that already existed, like borrowed one from someone, there's still models and specific things that you would have to make in order for that to work, because
because all the prisoners are smiling.
Sorry?
All the prisoners are smiling.
Yeah,
to be doing the work.
all the prisoners are smiling. That's a weird thing. Well, they're happy to be in prison, dear boy.
Paying off their debts to society.
And then there's, there's models of the 2 guys, Flower and Stone. There's models of Spader and Patinkin. There's models of the wall. There's models of the trailer home that they're in. So, like, even if you took an existing thing and borrowed it off someone or paid, a couple of $100 or whatever to film it, you would still have to then have a model maker make exact models of these things, which, is not inexpensive. But then beyond that, unless the filmmaker happened to know a dude who owned a meadow with a bunch of rocks in it, in the movie, they build an actual wall. Which I know isn't expensive, but I don't know.
Just CGI it now.
Right. But, the stones are real stones. And I mean, I know that doesn't make it like super big budget or whatever, but I mean, it's certainly like if you were making a low budget movie, you wouldn't go, just to fucking find a way to build a wall. Like, you wouldn't... And this is a huge fucking wall. This is like hundreds of feet long. This is not just like a little piddly wall. And it's at least 7 feet high. Like, it's taller than him. Yeah. It's at least 7 foot tall. So it's a hell of an undertaking to put in a little rinky-dink movie like this. But the other thing that's so weird is the rest of the movie feels like a student film. So it has these like big things in it. But the way Philip Haas directs it, and this is why I say, like, this guy should have been kept as far away from this fucking film as possible. But, like, the rest of it is that, like, the camera work is not good. The direction is not particularly good. At one point, you see a boom mic come into shot. It's a bit like a shonky student film. But then, juxtaposed against the fact that they build a fucking 100-foot long, 8-foot tall wall. You know what I mean? So it's weird. It's weird, is what I'm saying.
Well, as a director, he's a great architect because it's a very straight wall.
It's an exceptionally straight wall. That's what I will say about it. I tell you what, Philip. Not much with the camera, but it was an incredibly straight wall.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, when I go to the movies, what I'm looking for, dear boy, is a wall. And what you gave me is a wall.
Philip, how long did it take to build the wall, in all honesty, and how much did you pay the boys to do it?
And did Mandy Patinkin really do it? That's what I want to know. Is the irony of this movie that Mandy Patinkin signed on thinking that he was a free agent actor and actually became an indentured servant to the movie, playing a man who becomes an indentured servant to Joel Grey and Charles Durning, who in turn have become, no, I'm joking, indentured servants to their wealth, who in turn has become, no, I'm joking. Are there layers? Is that what we're saying here, Doc? Are there layers?
Layers upon layers upon layers, like an onion.
Or are you just banging your head against a bloody great wall? My favorite thing about the whole movie was Spader's costumes. Just
cowboy boots.
Yeah, no, but he went from like the white shoes with the pale baby blue suit and the loud shirt. To like at one point he's wearing like a silk brown blouse, and another point he's dressed like an Oasis fan at Glastonbury with a big floppy hat and a smock and a pair of dirty pants. Like there was that bit where he's on the sit on the wall. And he's talking to Emmett Walsh or whatever, and waving his hands around or whatever. He looks like every single one of my stoner friends in the 90s who went off to Glastonbury. That's exactly what he looked like.
Yeah. He was in a field, so he was literally in a field.
Yeah, I thought any minute now he was going to be like, right, but have you heard Blur's Park Life? You know what I mean? It's an exceptional work. Yeah, he was my favorite thing about it. I could have watched Spader play that character for the rest of time. The rest of it was just weird, and it was fine. It's one of those films though, like I don't want it to get lost. It was just given a release by Imprint in the UK.
Yes, I watched it on.
Is that what you watched it on? The Blu-ray, Imprint Blu-ray.
Yeah, really nice DVD, Blu-ray. Yeah, good company.
So how did that? And I asked you this at the beginning. I don't know if we ever got round to it. I think we went off down the road at something else. But so why Music of Chance? Like why was that the one that you were like, ooh, like?
I remember in the 90s seeing the video cover for it. Okay. I think it was like 2020 Vision, and it was like James Spader, and it was around the 93, so it was around that big indie boom.
Yeah,
I'd started buying him. Empire magazine, so I saw it in there, and I really wanted to see it. And then it's been so difficult to find.
Yeah,
over the past few years, Imprint released it, so I bought it. And then when he said about doing it, I thought, well, it'll give me a chance to watch it.
Yeah. Oh well, excellent. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's what chronologically it comes between Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, right? Pulp Fiction, 94.
Yeah.
When was True Romance? Is that 91?
93.
93. Okay.
Yeah. So same year.
This. And is Dogs the year before? Is that 92?
92, yeah.
All right. So that explains a lot as well. Like just that. Because when I first some of
really, James Spader was a bit of an indie darling, wasn't he? Sex, Lies and Videotape, which we did before.
Yes.
That was the stuck part of it with Steven Soderbergh.
Yes.
So he did like his 80s thing where he played the bastard in high school. And then the 90s, I'd say this is probably one of the roles that he really sort of lets himself go, and he's a bit different.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
James Spader.
Because when is Sex Lies? That's in 1989.
Yeah.
So, and that's fairly, like, what's interesting is obviously there's the 80s stuff that people know Spader for, Tough Turf, New Kids, Pretty in Pink, Mannequin, Baby Boom, Less Than Zero, Wall Street, and so on. But you're right, Sex, Lies, and Videotapes. It's funny because his last sort of big 80s style, like Brat Pack films are Bad Influence and White Palace. Oh, sorry, the Rachel Papers, Bad Influence and White Palace, all of which come after Sex, Lies, and Videotapes. So it's not like he does Sex, Lies, and Videotape and then it's like, nope, I am only doing, indie think pieces. He goes right back to being like, sleazing around with
he's got to keep being
Rob
him.
Lowe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's such an odd, like when I look at Spader's career, it's such an odd mix between like very low budget, like stuff like Driftwood, which we've covered before on the show, and even things like Keys to Tulsa and this and others that are very, like, they're low budget films that there's not a lot of money behind them, even though they have like fairly decent casts.
Well, it was spent mainly on the cast, I would think. The budget.
Right.
I mean, Mandy Patinkin was huge. Was he huge on Broadway around this time?
Yeah, Mandy Patinkin was big on Broadway. Although he'd already done Princess Bride.
Yeah.
But then you get, like, it's so weird because sort of he does, in the mid-90s, he does Wolf, Stargate, and Crash, all of which would become, like, huge for different reasons. But
big cult films.
They're big films. 2 Days in the Valley, which was a big rental, but was not a big movie. It was sort of the right there with, the Pulp Fiction ripoffs of the time.
Things to Do in Denver, When You're Dead, and all those. Although I do like that one.
But then right off the back of that, he does Driftwood, which is literally, it's a two-hander. And it was filmed in Ireland, and it's him and a French bird, and she finds him on the beach, and he doesn't have a memory, and she takes him back to his hut, and they have sex and everything. Like, it's a very quiet little movie.
James Spader film. Yeah.
Keys to Tulsa, which is, I don't even know what Keys to Tulsa is. It's part of old ass. It's awful. It's Eric Stoltz and Spader, and it's just awful. And then
I always wondered when the two gingers would get together and make a film in there.
Oh, they did a couple of things together. They did that, and he's in 2 Days in the Valley with him.
Of course he is, yeah.
And what else is he in with him? I think he's in one other movie with him as well. Aren't they all in Greasy Lake together? And I'm not kidding. That's an actual... Yeah, he is. He's in a movie called Greasy Lake. And it's greasy because of Spader.
Is it?
Yeah.
Greasy with a Z.
Yeah. It's summer vacations just started, and 3 19-year-old friends decide on a night out cruising, heading for Greasy Lake outside L.A. It turns out more eventful than they expected.
Who's the other ginger? Is it Ed Sheeran? Is it them three?
No, it's not. Apparently, Tom Waits narrates it. What? All right, I need to see.
Have you not seen this?
Yeah, have I not seen that? I need to find. Clearly, I need to find. It's only 30 minutes long, so it's not a full movie.
Gay porn.
Yeah, right. It's called Greasy Lake. Spader's like, I'm in. But no, it's just the fact.
You probably want to read the script first.
Yeah.
Apologies. We sadly have to pause for some ads. Maybe if more of you supported us on Patreon. But there it is. The After Movie Diner doesn't endorse any of these advertisers. We don't even know what you're going to hear. It's forced technical AI wizardry. And don't fool yourself. None of us are in control. The robots are coming, and they want to sell us insurance.
You know, he was in a bunch of big 80s things, like I say, like Pretty Pink Mannequin, Baby Boon, Lesson Zero, Wall Street. You'd think, you know, higher and higher and higher, you'd think he'd done it. But no, then he does Jack's Back, Greasy Lake, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which was obviously a big indie thing, but it's not a big movie.
No.
The Rachel Papers, Bad Influence, White Palace, True Colors, Storyville. None of these are like, you know, much of anything. I mean, they're fine, but they're not. I mean, I remember White Palace. We all watched White Palace because of titties. But I mean, apart from that, like, no one watched White Palace because of the plot. You know what I mean? It was just Sarandon's titties. And then a little bit more like Wolf, Stargate, Crash, 2 Days in the Valley. You're like, okay. And then nothing again. Driftwood, Keys to Tulsa, Critical Care, It All Came True, Supernova, The Watcher, Slow Burn, Speaking of Sex. I mean, all of the Stick Up, all of these are like, no one's watched these movies but me. I'm like the only person to have watched these movies. And by 2003, he's an alien hunter, which isn't even like Sci-Fi Channel levels of
I've not seen
budget.
It, but, yeah.
And it's just so odd to me that, you know, that he's never really, like, you know, everyone knows who James Spader is, but it's just odd to me.
It's like he hit a point where his agent died and he couldn't find another agent. Right. So he's like, his mum just got in the work.
Oh, I've got this lovely movie.
Have you ever thought about fucking a leg wound?
Yeah. Well, also, like, he's in a movie in 1998, It All Came True, which has Maggie Smith and Michael Caine in it. But it's a movie you've never heard of. Like, how does a movie come out that has Michael Caine, James Spader, and Maggie Smith in it, and you've never fucking heard of it? Like, I know Michael Caine's done some random-ass shit in his time, but, like... Yeah. And it's funny, I've watched It All Came True. It All Came True is the Sleazy Spader episode that never got released.
How come?
Well, because Jim and I started talking about it, and we had such vastly different takes on it. Like, Jim fucking hated it. Like, he hated it to his core, and I thought it was kind of funny and stupid, and we could take the piss out of it. But he so hated it that we couldn't, like, I wanted some fun banter. And it wasn't happening. And Jim wanted to fucking burn the film. And I didn't want that. So it was one of those where we kind of got halfway through recording and just went, yeah, this isn't happening. You know what I mean? And we just both agreed to, like, you know, agree to disagree, and we moved on. So I've watched it, and it's but it's the Sleazy Spader episode that never was.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely fine. It's good to have those out there. But I do think if we're going to do, like, you know, if I was to do a seventh Sleazy Spader Springtime next year, it would really be slim pickings. Because, I mean, the only ones we haven't covered, I mean, unless I did, like, Age of Ultron or Lincoln or something where he has, like, a cameo in it. Like, it would be shit like Shadow of Fear, which I've tried to watch and is fucking awful. The Pentagon Papers, which, like, is a TV movie, might be worth it because, like, doesn't it have isn't Cusack in it, or is it Cusack in a different one?
It might be. Yeah.
No, he's not in that one. He's in True Colors, is what he's in.
That's it. True Colors. That's with John Cusack in it.
Yeah. So I could do, like, True Colors, Pentagon Papers. You know, but it's not really a season. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be a compelling season. It would literally be the dregs.
Yeah.
Because it would be Shadow of Fear that nobody cares about, Pentagon Papers nobody cares about, True Colors, which has a little bit of interest based on the fact that it's Cusack and Spader, but that's about it. We've covered everything else. I mean, Less Than Zero and Mannequin we did during the Andrew McCarthy episode.
That's right. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So it's not technically part of Sleazy Spader Springtime, but I don't know that I would want to go back. There is a Killer in the Family that he did with Robert Mitchum that's available on the Warner Archive collection.
Ooh.
So maybe there's enough to do a seventh season next year. Then let's wait and see. Let's see how many people download this season, seeing as I brought it back from the dead. But anyway, any more about Music of Chance or Spader in general, sir, that you would like to talk about?
No, it's definitely worth a watch. I think it's definitely worth a watch. I think it might be a film that probably, if you do find something in it and you go back to it, you probably will find more the more you go back to it.
Or less. I mean, who knows?
I will probably watch it again. I didn't mind it as much.
I tell you what it is. The Music of Chance is the kind of movie that if I ever got to interview James Spader, I wouldn't care to necessarily talk to him about Crash or Sex, Lies and Videotape or whatever. I'd want to talk to him about Driftwood and Music of Chance and these kind of movies where you're just like, so what was the thinking there, James?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's definitely one of those where he's, I bet they all thought they were going to shit on Cannes that year with that film.
Yeah,
I bet they probably thought they were coming home with the Palme d'Or. And,
no, I'm sorry. It's just not well directed enough at all at any point.
But you know what? I tell you, I think it's a good fucking wall.
It's a great wall. Great wall, 3 stars.
Yeah.
No, it's a good movie, and as I said, it has its positives, it has its negatives, but well worth just for the Spader of it and just for the obscure nature of it. Like, it's just so.
Put it this way: if Hal Ashby had made it in the 70s, it would have fucking killed.
Yeah, if Hal Ashby had made it, everyone would be like, well, did you see the film Hal made about the 2 men who build a wall? Oh, the metaphors!
Yeah.
And people would be ejaculating and hitting the roof. It would be Kermode's favourite film. That's what it would be.
Absolutely. And Simon Mayo would still be sort of like, what?
What do you mean they build a wall? Well, Mayo, understand that there are these things called walls. I do understand what a wall is, Mark.
Yeah, I know who Pink Floyd is, not that wall.
I fucking hate those two. I used to like those two and listen to those two a lot, and now I fucking hate them.
I never listened to them. So.
But that's basically it. Like, Kermode would start reviewing it. So it's James Spader and Mandy Patinkin. They have to build this wall. And Simon Mayo would be like, what do you mean they have to build a wall? He'd be like, well, that's the part of the film. They have to build a wall. Well, it doesn't sound like a very interesting film to me. And everyone listening to it would be like, shut up, Mayo! You fucking penis. And then Mark Kermode would be like, I think it would be better if I played some skiffle over the top of it. Fuck off, Kermode! You fucking toilet. That's what the review of Music of Change would be. Music of Chance would be like. And then M. Emmett Walsh is in it. And then Simon Mayo would be like, how many M's is that? Fuck off! Simon Mayo, you cunt! That's like, it's so easy to do their banter because their banter is so pre-planned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like wrestling.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Only with less talent.
Yeah, but they had their moment, dude. Like, that podcast was big for like a minute. Yeah.
I bet they didn't get 400 fucking downloads last month for Martial Outlaw, though.
Yeah, right. So Dr. Action episodes still catching the heat, dude. Do you ever think that we'll sit back in those chairs?
I would love to do a couple of Burt Reynolds ones. After watching Malone, I would like to do Malone.
Yeah.
And there's some more. I think
I'm Malone now.
Yeah.
Mo and I always make that joke, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you seen the VHS cover of Malone?
Yeah, with the shotgun.
Yeah, with the fire behind him.
Yeah.
You know I own that, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking. It's my favorite because it's just a wall of fire, and then him with the shotgun, like doing his, because he's been shot in the leg or wherever he gets shot.
Yeah.
He gets shot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I fucking love that movie.
It's that video cover that you look at and you just go, want it, need it.
Yes.
Checked into my fucking.
I don't even care what happens in it. I just want Burt Reynolds in pain with a shotgun with a wall of fire behind him, and they've tucked the Orion logo, which is like the only other thing. I don't even think it says. It may say Burt Reynolds on it, but the only other thing on the front of it is the Orion logo, and they've tucked it into the crook of his leg. It's like a really weird. Like, because his leg's bent, right? They've taken like a... It's such a weird video cover, but I fucking love it. It's fantastic. Have you ever seen, like, did you ever see, like, that movie, like, Raven that he made? He made, like, a whole series of action movies which just look terrible. But
yeah, I know. I think I might have bought it, like, on a DVD that was sort of like 10p.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is. But, if it's ever on YouTube, I'll probably give it a watch just to sort of, say I've watched 5 minutes of it.
Yeah.
But, I always thought we'd probably end up doing that one and Dance Action one time, because that was 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, we could do we could do Malone. We could do a little Reynolds season. Why not? We could even dip back to the 70s. We did the blaxploitation movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So we could do Reynolds down south. Reynolds, Gator, and those ones. White Lightning, which I have on the Kino Lorber Blu-rays.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could do that. I mean, we could do some Scott Adkins movies. There's some good Scott Adkins movies we could do.
Have you seen the new Accident Man?
I have. Accident Man, Hitman's Holiday. I have, yes.
Is it good?
Yes, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, okay, I've got to get that because
I wish either Jesse Johnson or Isaac Florentine had directed it.
Yeah.
I think it fails in the direction a little bit, but I loved the first one.
I did.
And I thought the sequel was. The sequel's a lot funnier. The sequel's a lot sillier, but maybe a little repetitive.
Right. Okay.
But decent.
Yeah.
But a little repetitive.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I recently, I went on a tear because they had a whole bunch of sales on Amazon, and I think I own almost every Scott Adkins movie up until a point. I don't own any of the more recent one, but I own all his. I even went ahead and bought Metal Hurlant, the TV series.
Yeah.
With Michael Jar White and whatever, because it was on for $10 or something. But yeah, I picked up. I don't own Hitman's Holiday yet because it wasn't out on Blu-ray. But I rented it on Amazon. So I've watched it. But I own the first one, Avengement. Which is, Avengement is still like Avengement, Ninja 2, Undisputed, probably 3 and 4, maybe. Those to me are just like justify Atkins. But anyway, so we got one more thing to do before we end the episode, sir. Sleazy Spader Springtime. There is always one thing, which is, what does James Spader take from the set of the movie and put in the sleazetorium in his basement? And it's never something obvious, right? It's never like a huge dildo or
it's not the Penthouse magazine he asked for.
Right, it's not the Penthouse magazine, it's not Samantha Mathis's underwear. Like what could he be sleazy with that intrinsically has no sleaze value to anyone else, but he makes it intrinsically sleazy? I know what my choice is, but I want to know if you have an option, sir, from this.
Let me think. It might be Emmett Walsh's gun.
I thought you were going to say Emmett Walsh's overalls. I think you'd want Emmett Walsh's dungarees.
Yeah. I want to take Emmett Walsh. And you go, what, his dungarees? You go, no. I want to take Emmett Walsh.
I just want to take Emmett Walsh and put him in sleazetorium. Why the gun, sir? What's the thinking behind the gun?
Because I couldn't think of anything else.
Okay. My choice would be this. My choice would be the little red wagon that they're given to move the stones around in it, because it's like a child's red wagon. And
Mandy Patinkin says, "I bought one for my daughter."
Yeah, and it would have Mandy Patinkin's sweat on it. And I think that, because it's not like, so this is the other thing we should talk about quickly, is it's not particularly a sleazy film. Spader is sleazy in it. He has lank hair, mustache. He folds his legs like a Muppet folds their legs like, he crosses his legs like a Muppet does. His limbs are very like gangly and obscene. His outfits are ridiculous. I mean, he definitely has that baby blue suit covered in blood. Like, he definitely saved that as well.
He turned up on saying that.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if the real Mandy Patinkin was driving down the road and saw Spader covered in blood, and when asked what the hell happened to you, he was like, I was at the Playboy Mansion, and I'm not going to tell you any more of that story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was at the Playboy Mansion for a very select party that involves lots of bloodletting. Let's just leave it at that.
You had to be there.
You had to be there. So he definitely has the baby blue suit, but I think he would find something particularly obscene about the little red wagon. So that's why I think he takes that. No, the movie's not particularly sleazy, but there is the fact that out of all of the cast and crew and everything, he's the one that asks for a prostitute. And then Samantha Mathis shows up in like a blink and you'll miss it cameo for no reason at all.
And she gets billed above Emmett Walsh.
Sorry?
And she gets billed above Emmett Walsh. Ridiculous.
Yeah, he's got a face like a ball bag, so that doesn't surprise me. Philip Haas is like, I have listed people in order of beauty, and M, you have a face like a ball bag. So I'm putting you down the list.
I noticed you put yourself after me.
But no, the sleaziest it gets is the prostitute scene. But I still think he would take the red wagon. I think there's something that he would find particularly.
It's definitely the red wagon. It's definitely the red wagon, because you just know he'd want to be pulled around in it.
He'd want to be pulled around in it wearing a nappy.
Yeah.
And a nappy, and then like one of those golden wreath, like Roman emperor wreaths that they used to wear around their head, like a little golden fascinator with leaves on it, and a nappy, an adult nappy, and he just gets pulled around in the red wagon, screaming at the women who are pulling him, "Mush you, mush!" James Spader this afternoon became the first man to reach the North Pole in a red wagon pulled by topless women.
Does it for charity?
He does it. Well, no, he says he's doing it for charity, but we all know really why he's actually doing it.
No, he does. He does. He donates his time now to help anal bleach the homeless.
Why did you say that the moment I took a big gulp? Can you imagine him on like The View or something, some daytime talk show, being like, "So James, we understand you started a new charity." "Yeah, that's right. I've started a new charity." Yeah. And what's it for? I give money to anally bleach the homeless.
Not only my money, but my time. I like to do it.
I have a mobile bleaching kit that I take around. I've got one of those old VW camper vans, plenty of room in there for anal bleaching, and I just invite home. So James, you invite homeless people into your VW camper van and you bleach their anus. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. And I let them take a copy of it home with them on their sofa.
He has a charity to anal bleach the home. That is phenomenal. That is hilarious. Oh my goodness, that is. I'll do pubic mounds as well at a push. Like if you want to bleach your pubic region, then your pubis, then I'll do that as well if you want. Like I'm easy either way, but I like the anus.
Yeah, I'm all about the butt.
So do you feed them? Do you give them a shower? No. There are other charities that do that. I'm just anally bleaching. That's all I'm interested in doing.
I make sure they get work.
Yeah. Well, they get a workout anyway.
Yeah.
And how many people have you done this for, James? At least 88 at this point. I do about 7 a day, 8 a day, something like that. It's just a hobby. It's a hobby. But I like to give back to the homeless of New York.
There'll be no Stargate 2 because I'm too busy at the minute doing that.
Doing my anally bleaching charity. I hear Kurt Russell has signed on. Yeah, Kurt has signed on, but I can't be a part of it, I'm afraid. I still love the fact that when asked by David Cronenberg, like, do you think you'll be okay doing Crash? He goes, James Spader's response was, well, I get to fuck everyone. That was his actual response. His actual response was, yeah, it's great. I get to fuck everyone, right? And he's like, yeah.
Well, yeah, but not really.
No, he's like
he just turns up on set naked with a huge stonking erection. He's like, whoa. No.
Yeah.
No, there's no real wounds here.
Yeah.
I wonder if he went method.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely went method.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely went method. But no, he's like, I get to fuck everyone. And then Cronenberg's like, yeah, basically. And then he goes, even Elias Koteas. I want to make sure that I definitely put it down on paper that I get to fuck Elias Koteas. Okay. I would have thought the fact that you slept with all the women would have been... No. I want to make this very clear and put it in my contract.
Yeah.
I fuck Elias Koteas.
Yeah. What about Holly Hunter?
I'll take or leave that. But I want to make sure that the end of the Elias Koteas scene after I fucked him, that he smears cum on his face. Like, I want to make sure that that's a thing.
Is that what happens?
That happens, yeah.
I've not watched it yet.
There's a lot of well, there's two fluid scenes, let's just say.
Well, it is Cronenberg, so you do expect it, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, you don't see like streams. You don't see
It's not Silence of the Lambs. No, it's not Meeks.
No, you don't see streams of ejaculate, but you see it on fingers and on faces and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really pointless film. It really is. It's just sex scene, car crash, sex scene, car crash, sex scene, car crash, and then it ends, and you go, that was a lot of sex and a lot of car wrecks. Yeah. And Spader gets to sleep with everyone. I'm trying to think, is there anyone in the film he doesn't have sex? No, he has sex with Holly Hunter, Deborah Kara Unko, Rosanna Arquette's leg wound, and Elias Koteas. So
full on days for him then, filming that.
Yeah.
Filming that bad boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's had sex with Holly Hunter and Deborah Kara Unga multiple times. Multiple times.
Always the way.
So he takes a little red wagon for Music of Chance.
Yeah.
And that's been it. That's been our episode on Sleazy Spader Springtime, Music of Chance, available now on imprint Blu-ray in the UK and on import. Doc, any final messages, comments, questions?
About the film?
About anything, sir.
Oh, I shout out to my grandson, Arthur Jude Devereaux.
Nice.
That's it. That's. I just want to just say hello to him. So
yeah. So that when he gets older,
he's going to listen to all of this and then go, "Is that it? Is that it? You make an anal bleaching joke, and then you say."
At what age is he going to be allowed to start going through the Dr. Action catalogue?
Oh, 6?
6?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
What is it? Just a few bad words. Just a few bad words.
Yeah. Like, looking back, I don't think I swore once.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going to get any of the references, but it will be funny when he toddles up to you at the age of 6 and goes, "Who's Michael Winner?" And you're going to be like, "Let me sit you down and tell you a story."
All about Mr. Michael Winner.
We'll start with Death Wish. Start with an easy one. And there's only one rape in that, so start with an easy one.
Yeah. Going slowly.
Yeah. And then we'll you've got to ease in slowly to Winner. There's people said that.
That's what they said in the 70s.
You've got to ease in slowly with me, dear boy. That's what you have to do.
Bit of elbow grease.
A bit of elbow grease. Well, I am making a movie, and so if you want to have a cameo in the film I'm making, you just let me know.
I'll be a cock double.
Yeah, be a cock double, or but similarly, like if there's something you can film like where you are now and like send me the footage, let me know and I'll write it into the script or whatever. But,
okay, no problem.
Anyway, dude, I got to jump for dinner, but lovely jubbly. Thanks for doing this. Love to everybody and speak soon.
Yeah, you too, brother. All right,
man. Bye now.
See you later. Bye.
Yes, we've come to the end of the show. That wasn't so bad, was it? You can move forward now with the confidence that you are a survivor. To play us out, here's some new music by Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, which you can find on Bandcamp, Spotify, and wherever music is found. Even TikTok, which we don't understand. We're old and find your childish, vain pursuits confusing. Good night.
One more day for the mood to change, when the ceiling's getting low, when the impulse is to go. Just wait, just wait. Wait for all the clarity you need to continue at your chosen speed. Wait, it's on its way when I cannot say. Give it one more day. Nothing hangs around forever. The knot is fraying on the tether, and the times you just gave in when the line gets faint and thin. Just wait. Just wait. Wait for all the colors to reemerge. Wait for all still waters to surge. Wait, it's just this way. It'll loosen up the clay. give it one more day. When after all's been said and done, when all the runners have now won, and you're still halfway round the track, when the crews are breaking down, the lights are dim but you're still around, take your time and heading back. No one else knows where this ends, they just all seem to pretend, and paper up the cracks. But you're not running late, you just chose this time to wait. No, you're not running late, you just chose this time to wait. It only caught you in passing, accosted you, avoided asking. A moment in the messy grand scheme, press pause on the dream, and just wait, just wait.